So hello and welcome everyone. We should be streaming live. I'm just waiting for the signal to come through on YouTube and then we'll be good to go. Okay, looks like we are, looks like things are happening. And welcome, thank you. There's really quite a few people watching. Juliet, Carol B, XYZ, Carol B again. Here is in the comments, and then we have Thunderous One and 2012 Stephen. Thank you guys all for being here. Thunderous, welcome. Thank you for joining me again. Yeah, no, I appreciate the support and the feedback and the very interesting questions and perspective you give. And then, guys, also on Sunday, we'll be doing another three-way show with Thaddeus. So myself, Thunderous, and Thaddeus again on Sunday. So we'll confirm the time, but it's either going to be at 11 a. No, sorry, yeah. It's either going to be at noon Eastern Standard Time or at 1 Eastern Standard Time, which would be at 5 p.m. London time, UK time, or at 6 p.m. UK time. So we'll run again. No volume from Thunderous One. No, there's definitely output. So, Thunderous, could you say a few things, please? Yeah, you definitely have streaming audio. I'll turn up the volume. I'll jack it up, but you definitely have audio coming through. XYZ, are you hearing Thunderous? Give me a 1 if you can, 2 if you cannot. No volume. Okay, anyone else? Can you guys not hear Thunderous? Can everyone hear Thunderous, guys? Okay, cannot hear you, so I'm going to switch over the audio. Thunderous, just say something again, please. No, they won't, so let me change the speakers. And try again, please.
Hello, 1 2 1 2. Hello, 1 2 1 2. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? When I'm on a mic, when I'm on a mic.
Anyone? Do you have Thunderous now?
Can you hear me now? Yes.
Now you're coming through for some reason. Okay, so this is because of a software change in OBS, the way it functions.
Okay, so okay, well, if people can hear me now, I'd like to say hello to everybody. Thank you for joining the show, and I'd like to give a personal thank you to you, Lloyd, for inviting me on the show and participating in this evening's material.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so sorry about that, guys, but OBS, maybe I should switch to a different platform, but yeah, OBS has had some changes, and it seems that yeah, the inputs are not working the way it used to. Everything appears perfectly normal on this end. I'll say that. So why it's not coming through, I don't know. But let's dive in. So guys, today's topic is moonotheism, right? Islamic moonotheism. As you know, Islam is pure moonotheism. This theory has been going around for a long time. This series is an effort to actually discuss it in real depth. We're going through a lot of history and archaeology for those who don't know it. For those who want to follow up, I've done this series on Adam Seeker's channel, on Nuria Khan's channel, The Holy Humanist, as well as with Thaddeus, Reasoned Answers, Apologetics. You can find the entire series in their channels, and it goes into lots of detailed discussion. And I've not done it on my channel in full. So I'm going to give you a 5-minute overview, and we should run for about an hour. And again, on Sunday, we should have another show for another hour with Reasoned Answers. Okay, so as you can see on the slides here, what we have is, hello, Zachar, welcome. Dragon, thank you very much. Thank you for your kind support always. Josie Wales. And he never returned as a horse. Welcome, thank you. You know, it would be interesting to chat with you one day with your law enforcement background and experience. And also, some of my subscribers and some people who watch my channel have been very generous, and I want to say thank you very much. It's really appreciated, all the support that I've gotten, and I do appreciate it. And okay, guys, so what we have is moonotheism, and there's a reason that there is a cross. Sorry, there's a reason there's a cross on top of a church, because that is the symbol, of course, that is associated with Christianity. It has a historical significance, and it has a religious significance. There's a reason that there is a moon and a star on top of a mosque. It has a historical significance as well as a religious significance. And this is pagan. And this series goes into a lot of detailed history and archaeology, a number of resources to explain exactly why, and look at the ancient pagan origins of Islam, which goes back to the moon gods of Babylon. Okay, I'm going to jump forward here. So the important slide is this one. Okay, so just to bring you guys up to speed very quickly, and we've been talking about these Sabaeans, right? And we're going to look at a Muslim perspective on a group called the Sabaeans. They were based in Yemen. Yemen is the country just below Arabia, just south of Arabia. Now, the Muslim writer Muhammad Shukri al-Alusi compared the Sabaean religious practices to Islam in his book, The Bulugh al-Arab fi Ahwal al-Arab. And he said in his book that Arabs during the pre-Islamic period used to practice things that were included in the Islamic Sharia. They, for example, did not marry both a mother and her daughter. They considered marrying two sisters simultaneously to be the most heinous crime. They censured anyone who married his stepmother. They made major Hajj and minor Umrah pilgrimage to the Kaaba. They performed the circumambulation around the Kaaba Tawaf. They ran 7 times between Mount Safa and Marwa, and they threw rocks and washed themselves after sexual intercourse. They gargled, they sniffed water up into their noses, they clipped their fingernails, they removed all pubic hair and performed ritual circumcision. Likewise, they cut off the right hand of a thief and stoned adulterers. Now, these are Sabaean pagans from the first millennium BC. They go back to roughly 800 BC. These were a tribe in Yemen that migrated north into Arabia to what we call Mecca today. They conquered that region, and their religion was based on the moon god of Babylon. And the name of their god, of all things, was Makkah. Your thoughts, Thunderous?
Well, for starters, I wanted to ask, when did Muhammad Shukri al-Alusi find these, or make these findings, or write a book, or release this information?
So let me see if I have the information here at hand. Yeah, so we'd have to look him up then, because I don't have a direct reference in the notes here. But this is mentioned. So this is a historical book. I mean, that really exists by this scholar. So he makes it in his book.
So I think the point that I'm trying to make is that if this is information that somebody else who, well, his name suggests he's a Muslim, and if somebody he found this information, then it's very much on the lines of Yasser Qadi, where we don't release this information because it's quite damning. So I should imagine that this is very tight knit as to how far this information gets out.
I would think so. Yeah, that would make perfect sense. Because would you agree that these practices are 100% in accordance with modern Islam?
Well, they are absolutely. And the thing is, you see, if you could trace the roots to paganism and not Judaism or Christianity, then that's a damning indictment in itself.
Exactly so, yeah. Now let's continue. So the Sabaeans have 5 prayers similar to the 5 prayers of the Muslims, he continues. And then there are other scholars that also work on this, right? So this is just a brief summary to catch you guys up, because it's been a while since I've done this. I've neglected my own channel. So others say they have 7 prayers. Now we've discussed, remember, the 8 pillars that they have and the spaces, the gaps between the pillars. 8 pillars gives you 7 gaps, 7 prayers, 7 ways to God, right? In a sense, 7 paths. And of course, some have 6 pillars, right? Which were 5 prayers, right? 5 of which are comparable to the prayers of the Muslims. And even in the Quran, correct me if I'm wrong, Thunderous, but there's an early morning prayer you can also do, as well as a late night prayer you can also do. So technically, there are potentially 7 prayers in Islam.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So 5 of which are comparable to the prayers of the Muslims with regard to time, that is morning, noon, afternoon, evening, and night. Now, oddly, in the Quran, they don't explicitly mention 5 prayers. They don't. They aren't discussed. They name 3, they discuss a 4th, but there's no 5 prayers, right? But these guys, in their religion, have 5 prayers, right? And the 6th is at midnight, which corresponds to what's in Islam, I believe. And the 7th is at forenoon. It's their practice to pray of the dead without kneeling down or bending the knee, which I believe is what Muslims do. You stand up straight. I've been to Muslim funerals. Daniel Rodriguez, welcome. Sola Scriptura, Skippy, Arnold, welcome all. Reflectiere, es ist Licht in dir. Es ist Licht in dir. Okay, welcome. They also fast for 1 lunar month of 30 days. They start their fast at the last watch of night and continue till the setting of the sun. Some of their sects fast during the month of Ramadan. They face the Kaaba when they pray. They venerate Mecca. Remember, the chief god of the Kaaba then was Hubal. Let me just go to my notes. And then I'll open it up to you again for a minute, Thunderous. The chief god of the Kaaba was Hubal. Now, Hubal, obviously, so just so briefly, you have Baal. Baal is mentioned often in the Bible, and it's mentioned in other historical sources. Baal technically can have 2 meanings. Baal means so it loosely, look, don't quote me on this, right? Basically means a god. okay, the Baal of this place, the god of this place, right, the pagan god, then Baal can also be a name of a god, a specific name, a pronoun, okay? This is the name of the god. The god's name is Baal. But you can also have many Baals. There's a Baal of this town and a Baal of that town, right? But Hu Baal, Hu is a prefix based on that region, okay? Historically, Hu Baal is a prefix in that region. You can see it as Hu Baal. Hu meaning he who is. So he who is Baal, okay? Hu Baal, he who is, okay? He who is, and then Baal. So the god who is Baal was the god of the Kaaba. So Hubal was the god, Baal was the god of the Kaaba. Your thoughts, Thaddeus, before I continue?
Well, everything that you're talking about on Baal, I totally agree with you. We actually find that everything you're saying there reconciles itself perfectly with the Bible, particularly when you're looking at the narratives with the nation of Israel. But the question I wanted to ask is related to Mecca. Now, obviously, you'll be aware that in recent times there's questions regarding Mecca. It's the fact that it's not on the trade routes, cartography, or on mentioned by any world powers in any other religion and such. So how do you reconcile, or what do you reconcile as being Mecca, given that there's probably a new narrative now concerning this structure? Would you reconcile it to, say, Petra, or is it the present Mecca, or somewhere completely different?
So in the work that I'm doing, so Islam changed over time. There were geographic changes as they traversed different terrains. They conquered various places. They absorbed different things into themselves. And this is it's actually discussed within the Islamic law. It's called Qanun. So we would take it from the term canon, but in Islam it's called Qanun. So canon law. This is law from different regions which was absorbed into the Sharia so that they could create harmony within their empire, within the Ummah, right, the Caliphate. So this concept is well known, at least within Islamic development over the 800-900 years that the Sharia developed. So yes, there were influences from places like Haran in Turkey. Okay, There were influences definitely from Petra and surrounds. However, the major influence, one which I demonstrate in depth in the series, if you go back to the earlier shows or go to the other channels where I've done it in depth, you will find that the strongest influences in Islam, which have been completely ignored by other researchers, is Yemen.
Yes,
okay?
Yeah, absolutely. The question I want to ask then is. Now, when in the early part of the Quran, it talks about the Qibla being changed because the Jews were, the Muslims at the time, or the people of the community at the time that were responding to Muhammad were actually facing Jerusalem when they were praying. Then Muhammad turns around and says, "I'm going to give you a new Qibla." So we know that they're facing Jerusalem. So where did they face to now? Do you have any thoughts on that? Because there is the narrative as well of going into the building and 360 odd idols being smashed.
Okay, yeah. So that's an interesting story on its own. The idols being smashed. There's a lot of questions to be asked there, but which I'll talk about in a moment. But okay, so no, that's fine. No, you're raising some very good. No. As I said, I invite you because you ask such good questions. Tell you what, let me finish this passage, and then notice the Muslims face the Kaaba when they pray. They venerate Mecca. They believe in making the pilgrimage to the Kaaba. They consider dead bodies, blood and flesh of pigs as unlawful. They also forbid marriage for the same reasons as do Muslims. This is in his book. Let me see if I have a reference to this in my notes. And no, I do not. Volumes 1, page 121 to 122. And in the book, Bulugh al-Arab fi Akhwal al-Arab, read the 4 sacred months, Rajab, Dhu al-Qada, Dhu al-Hijjah, and Muharram, had been considered sacred during the pre-Islamic period, even the Jahiliyyah. Raids, taking revenge, war, fighting and disputes were forbidden during them. And don't forget, Muhammad abrogated that with verse 9:5. Right, when the sacred months have passed.
Yeah.
Right. If a man were to meet his enemy or killed his father or brother, he would not quarrel. During the sacred months, the people were under restriction not to fight or make raids, and had to remove their spearheads as a sign they would avoid fighting. Obviously, Islam borrowed the hallowing of these months from pre-Islamic Arabs and introduced nothing new into the world. And this is from scholar Abdallah Abdal Fadi in his book, Is the Quran Infallible, page 127.
Yeah, because they were notorious for raiding each other's caravans at the time. Is that correct?
Correct. Now, oddly enough, the Yemenis, these Sabaeans, also raided caravans. This was one of their practices. And Muhammad was simply following these practices. A lot of the Islamic practices were things that Muhammad emulated from the Sabaeans.
Yeah.
And now notice, if you read, now Abraham figures, now you have to go back and watch my videos on Abraham, right? And when you see the history of now Abraham, remember his father worshipped pagan idols. And Abraham smashed the idols of in his father's workshop. Do you remember that story, Thunderous?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, we touched on it several shows ago
Yeah.
about the connections between that and the Bible and other things, but I'm sure they'll come out later on today as well.
Right. So now he was, according to the old scriptures, according to the Jews, right, according to their oldest traditions, Abraham was a Sabaean. Abraham was a Sabaean. The religion of Abraham that Islam says that it follows. Remember, Islam says it rejects Judaism. It rejects Judaism as not a product of Abraham, right? It wants to find, and I showed how important it is within the Islamic scholarship, that they must find the original religion of Abraham. And according to the scripture and according to the Jewish legends and traditions, the original religion of Abraham was Sabaeanism, exactly this religion here that these guys have.
Mm-hmm.
And he left it behind. And of course, so remember, Abraham created the Kaaba, right? So Abraham built the Kaaba. And then Abraham, being a Muslim, put 360 pagan idols in it that he worshipped as a Muslim. But don't forget, Adam built the Kaaba.
Yes.
As the very first temple on earth. And of course, it's the house of God. And Adam was 36 meters tall. And of course, so he built a house to worship in that's only a few meters high, which he could not fit into. So he built a church he couldn't get into. And of course, he then, as a servant of God, as a prophet of Allah, put a whole bunch of idols in it. Now the question is, did Abraham smash the idols after he put them in there? Before he put... How does that story make sense that Abraham... Thunderous, up to you.
This is one of those that just this narrative in itself that when Adam was expelled from heaven, the first thing he did, or after meeting Eve, was to create the foundations for Mecca. But just the whole logic, we've done the discussion on this, or perhaps I've done the unreasoned answers about the logistics of a 90-foot man are just impossible. But
Correct.
even if you was to take that as a probability, just give the Muslims some kind of wiggle room here. The fact that a 90-foot man would make a construct that is physically smaller than him by 70 foot, because if you give a maximum height of the Kaaba as 20 foot, Adam still towers over it by 70 foot. And logic dictates if you give a 5 foot decrease rate for every generation, if you go by Islamic genealogy, you've got only about 7 or 8 generations away from Adam all the way down to Abraham, thus making him at a 5 foot decrease rate, 45 foot himself.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, so guys, this is the oldest temple on earth, built by Adam. Isn't it a glorious sight to behold?
And the thing is, another thing, for the oldest, most derelict building in the world, one only has to look at things like, say, the internet. Just type in Mecca and then go to Google Images, and just the further back in history and time you look at, the more derelict and obsolete the building looks in history.
Yeah, so Adam used modern cinder blocks to build the finest temple known to man. It's incredible. So yeah, just so you guys know. Look, so on that, so basically Adam built the Kaaba, but Abraham built the Kaaba, but Abraham didn't build the Kaaba. He rebuilt the Kaaba that Adam had built. But don't forget, he went to the desert because with Hagar, who was sent away from Abraham by Sarah, and Hagar found nothing in the desert. And so she was going to die, and her son was going to die. So the angel gave them a spring of water, and then Abraham came along and built the city Mecca, which was the oldest city, which was always there. And then there was something there, but there was nothing. And I don't know, it makes no sense at all. Whatever.
I think people need to consider this as well, that when you look at modern Mecca now and Saudi Arabia, you find that everything is concreted over.
Yep.
I think I mentioned this on a previous show where they found Richard III's body in a car park in Coventry, where they were going to build a car park for a supermarket. So wherever any kind of construction is taking place, there will be archaeologists and researchers there to look and see if there's any historical history behind it by any artifacts that are found. The fact that Islam does not allow any of this in Mecca, and it has been completely concreted over, one should really smell a rat with this alone.
Yeah. Okay, so guys, so before I move back into my presentation, I'll just, since we are just catching everyone up, so this here is, when you have a look here, right, the Sabaeans controlled this region here in Yemen. They controlled this region. This is Arabia here, right? This is Mecca here, right? Now, Makoraba is mentioned. This name comes up. The Muslims like to claim that Makoraba was the earliest name, which was mentioned by Ptolemy in his maps, right? The map of Ptolemy, 2nd century. And this is the location of Mecca. Makoraba was here in a place called Hiran, right? Not Haran, but Hiran. And we know it as modern day Al-Mahabisha. Now, Mahabisha refers to Ethiopia. And that, in this dialect, Al-Mahabisha means of Mahabisha, Mahabisha being Ethiopia. So Al-Mahabisha, of or belonging to Ethiopia, Al-Mahabisha. And there's a temple, there's a very, very ancient temple that was destroyed. And there's discussions in the Islamic sources of the Mecca of Yemen, the Kaaba of Yemen being destroyed. Muhammad sends 150 people to destroy it. And there's discussion of this. And also there was a museum here, which had 30,000 or 12,000 pieces of archaeology from this region, from the prehistoric, pre-Jahiliyyah time, okay, that I am discussing. And in 2012 or 2015, the Saudi Air Force sent a jet which dropped 2 precision bombs on the museum and blew the museum to smithereens.
We discussed that several months ago, didn't we? Because everyone's talking about the Ukraine war, but no one's talking about the Saudi Arabia-Yemen war. And one of the things I remember asking you was, do you think, because it's not mentioned, that this will be a maneuver by the Saudi Arabians to get rid of any evidence as well that contradicts the narrative?
Yeah, exactly so. So in a sense, so Makoraba, by all of the evidence, now I know Jay Smith has discussed it in some of his shows and others have discussed it, but I went into much greater depth and showed much more evidence than they have. Even Dan Gibson discussed Makoraba. I went into much greater depth than they did, using their work, but also showing additional that Makoraba, the original Mecca, would be here. Okay? Because, you see, these are all temples to Makkah, the god Makkah. These were temples here to the god Makkah in Ethiopia, right? And this is known as Al-Makkah. The god was known as Al-Makkah of Hiran, right? And you can see the name right here, Hiran. I'll show you, if you go to Google, you'll find it, but he was known as Al-Makkah, or the Makkah, Al-Makkah, right, of Iran. The difference between K and Q is that in the Yemeni dialect, they have more like a pa, a softer pa, whereas in the Arabic dialect, it's ka, makka, as opposed to makka, right? So the Yemeni dialect is softer, makka versus makka. So if you convert the QQ, or the Q of the Yemeni dialect into Arabian dialect, apparently then you get Makkah. So this was the original Makkah. Okay, and I'll move on from there. Any thoughts, Thunders, before we move on?
No, fine, thank you.
Okay, good stuff. Yeah, so let's continue. Now I jump to page 63 and continue where we left off previously. Right, hopefully this has been helpful to you guys, and it teaches you something new. Actually, I'll just... Right. Okay, just so by the way, I'll go one slide earlier. The Kaaba, outside of the standard narrative, nothing is known of its history, right? Then the only reason for presuming the Kaaba was in existence in the 2nd century is the mention of Mecca as Makaraba by Ptolemy. Now, this is a reference in the Encyclopaedia of Islam, volume 4, and it's a very, very common reference. And what I did demonstrate is that this is an error. This is an assumption, because the very first mention of Mecca as Makaraba has been traced to a man called Bochart in 1646. He was the first one to make this assumption. He thought that the term Makoraba referred to Mecca. Ptolemy never said that. So everyone tries to claim Ptolemy said it. No, this guy in the mid-1600s, in the 17th century, middle of the 17th century, he stated so. And there's no evidence for that. So and again, yes, Abraha went after the Yemeni Kaaba. Yes, sorry?
So that would be like a phonic misunderstanding then, based on the phonics and the pronunciation.
Yeah. Yes, and also Makaraba, Ptolemy, where Ptolemy does refer to Makaraba, he calls the city Makoraba with the significance of a mikrab or temple. Okay, now this is the mikrab as we have in the mosque today in modern terms, and it's got these columns, the pillars, right? And the Sabaeans had pillars, right? And Abraham also worshipped pillars, and God also says, and I showed this in previous episodes, not to worship pillars, right? And the word mikrab, while it is an Arabic word, it comes originally from Ethiopia. So in many cases, you'll notice that people say, oh, well, hey, this word, which is in Arabic, originally comes from the Aramaic. Fantastic. And pat themselves on the back and they go home. The problem is, if you look further back, the Aramaic word comes from the Ethiopic. So there's an actually, so instead of, they go back one source, but you can go back two sources and find that it originally comes from the Ethiopic. So there's an Ethiopian connection that is not examined. So Makoraba does mean temple in various Semitic languages. Okay, and yeah, so let me just move on. Okay, so I'll move on. So Abraha, what's Abraha in Mecca? Let's start here. So aside from the Muslim traditions, practically nothing is known of the history of the Kaaba. So the sole reason for presuming that the Kaaba was in existence is the mention of Mecca under the name Makoraba. And they say by the geographer Ptolemy, he never says that, as I mentioned, he only calls it a temple, right? It was Bokhar that mentioned that this was Mecca. So that was his mistake. Now, the accounts of the campaign of Abraha, which have been elaborated with legendary features, suggest the existence and worship of the Kaaba in the 6th century, but they tell us nothing of its appearance or equipment. The world's oldest city, the world's oldest temple, with no information about it whatsoever. Now, Abraha, it's also spelled Abreha. He lived in the 6th century, the 500s. He was an Ethiopian Christian viceroy of Saba, right, which is Yemen in southern Arabia. He was a zealous Christian. He was sent by the Ethiopian king, by the Ethiopian emperor, to quell a revolt that was happening in Arabia at the time. And he built a great church at Sanna, okay, which is called Ecclesia, right, to compete with the Kaaba at Mecca. Now again, if you look here, he was here at Sanna. His church was at Sanna. There were two major temples here, three major temples to the god Makkah right here. And this was another major temple, Al-Makkah of Hiran. And there's archaeology today that supports that still. So there's actual solid archaeological evidence. Right. Now, he repaired the principal irrigation dam at the Sabaean capital of Marib. And he's famous for the military expedition that he led northward against the city of Mecca in the same year as Muhammad's birth, about 570. Although it was supported by elephants, the expedition failed, and Muslims believe that Mecca escaped capture through a miracle. Abraha's rule ended in 575 when the Persian Sasanians invaded and brought the Sabaean kingdom to an end. Outside of later Islamic tradition, there's no mention of Abraha's expedition, including from Abraha's own inscriptions. It's interesting that this great king never mentions this thing himself. There's no record of it in his own writings. Now, African war elephants, so I'm using this book here, War Elephants by John M. Kessler. It's a real book, okay? You can download it from my archive, links in the description, right? African war elephants had not been used in the region for over 600 years. It is difficult to explain how Abraha would have gotten a hold on African war elephants in Arabia. Furthermore, Quran 105 appears to be appealing to traditions from Maccabees, the book Maccabees, which is obviously deuterocanonical, right? The Apocrypha, and not referencing any expedition on Abraha's part. Thaddeus, your thoughts?
No, sorry, I was actually slightly distracted by a comment that Josie Wales has put in the side, where Josie Wales says, when the Jews know where King David's city is, and the Christians know where St. Peter's house is at the Sea of Galilee. This is centuries before Islam, but they are pouring concrete over their own archaeology. And I was just thinking to myself, well, when you look at it from a historical point of view, if you look at the comparisons between Judaism and Christianity and, say, Mecca, the land that the nation of Israel settled in, well, they had Canaanites there, they had Philistines there, they had Moabites there, they had the nation of Israel there, the Romans went and conquered it, the Greeks went and conquered it, the Babylonians conquered it, the Assyrians conquered it. So you've had many people trampling on the ground. No, and yet, even still to today, we are finding things that verify and calibrate exactly what the Bible says, the Judeo-Christian scriptures, about what took place during that period of time. Yet Islam and all these things that you're mentioning now, Lloyd, there is nothing. It's just a vacuum, a void of information. So the only thing that's left for the Muslims to do is to concrete it over, because it'd be so simple to concrete it over or blow things up in other parts of the nearby in other countries that challenge the narrative, and and turn around and say, well, it must be under there somewhere, but we didn't find it when we concrete it over, than to leave it void and they find nothing at all, which would be more damning.
Yeah, it makes sense. And there are also the Arabs, the Saudis, are known to destroy archaeology, to destroy anything that might be damning to their history.
Well,
their
they did that. And was it in Afghanistan once, where there were two statues, quite tall statues, probably about 25, 30 meters themselves, and they blew them up with devices.
That's well known. Yeah, they've done that all over, but that's common. They destroyed a lot of stuff through history. Yeah, so let's continue. So when looking at Abraha's invasion and Muhammad's birth, okay, they are often dated to a year equivalent to 570. So remember, this happened in the year of the elephant, of course. Okay, and the commentators record, however, no unanimity on the matter. No Islamic commentators have any sort of unanimity, and there's no historical record of this that one can rely on, right? So have a look. Qurtubi. Now, man, Qurtubi has not been fully translated, and I know there's a reason, because this guy is just so blunt, right? I've got one copy of his book, and there's a whole bunch of them. I've got one of his books was translated to English. The rest you can't get, at least I can't get. But Qurtubi is representative in presenting sources that equate the year of the elephant with that of Muhammad's birth, as well as those that place Abraha's attack 23 or perhaps even 40 years before the birth of Muhammad. So, Qurtubi says, hold on, we've got some records that say, yeah, this happened in that year. Other records say it was 23 years before Muhammad was born. Others, it was 40 years before Muhammad was born. Western scholars have long questioned the accuracy and historical reliability of these chronologies. Right? There's Naldecker, Lamens, and Blachere also pointed out the inconsistencies within early Arabic sources and the contradictions between them, as well as evidence from extra Islamic traditions like the Roman, the Greek, and others who were trading in that region. Thunderous?
Well, the first thing I was thinking to myself, that when you look at the biblical narrative, there was a reason why everything was recorded from a historical point of view, because they were in expectation of the Messiah. The Mosaic law was leading to something, and God was showing his relationship with the people from what happened at the beginning to where things are going to get to at some point in the future. So there is a calibration that takes place between biblical history and secular history, but no one would have had the presence of mind pre-Muhammad to record anything. So when things are mentioned, all they've got is a speculation and a conjecture to go with, hence why there's no consistency.
Right. Yeah. So Nathaniel mentioned Patricia Crone's work. If you go to my archive, you're going to find work by Patricia Crone. You're going to find I've got these books that mention Patricia Crone's work here. Meccan Trade and Rite of Islam, Judeo-Christianity, and the Byzantine, whatever the heck. But I've got that book as well as some other references in my archive. So go to my archive, you'll find all of the references. Oh, Queen Elizabeth II died today. I'm sorry to hear that. Wow, that's yeah. But yeah. So my condolences to the family there. She's been quite the matriarch for a long time. Okay, now, what year did this happen? And did you know that Abraha's main elephant was a white elephant? Okay, so let's have a look at some of this. So according to some of the histories, when the people of Mecca had fled the city, seeing the approach of Abraha's army, the lead elephant that was named Mahmud. Did you know the lead elephant was named Mahmud?
No.
What is Mahmud a contraction of, Thunderous?
I'm speculating here. I'll take a guess. Is it possibly Muhammad?
What? Yes. It's like Mike. It's like Mike is a contraction of Michael. Mahmud is a contraction of Muhammad. The lead elephant's name was Muhammad.
so
according to Islamic legends.
So the lead elephant was the praised one.
Yes, the lead. And Abraha specially sent to Ethiopia for this elephant, this white elephant, okay? Don't forget, Muhammad's donkey was white. Muhammad's armpits were white. Muhammad's legs were white.
I was just going to say his belly were white. His shin was white. Everything about him was white. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So no, we no longer have, man, we used to have Nelly the elephant. Now you got Mahmud the elephant, so whatever. Okay. So Mahmud is a diminutive form of Muhammad. It's a short nickname for Muhammad. Okay, so Mahmud, when the elephant Mahmud got to the edge of Mecca, the elephant stopped and kneeled down and refused to go further. The rest of the elephants would not go without the leader, and so the whole formation came to a halt. All the other elephants obeyed the big white elephant. Mahmud was beaten and cajoled, but would not take one more step towards Mecca. Oh my, oh my. Your thoughts there, Thaddeus?
I'm just trying to understand how an elephant, a white elephant, would not want to take a step towards Mecca. I'm trying to reconcile the narrative here with something Islamic.
Of course, I mean, because you see, Muhammad the elephant decided he didn't want to attack Muhammad's city. Oh, whatever. Okay, fine. So Al-Waqidi.
So that would imply the elephant knew that there was a guy called Muhammad, the praised one, soon to come into this city.
Of course. Allah works in mysterious ways, okay?
Allah knows best.
It's so stupid. It's obviously so stupid. Anyway, Waqidi gives a tradition that there were 13 elephants with the army, besides this famous one called Mahmud, and that the latter was the only one that escaped death from the shower of stones. Oh my. Oh wow. How lucky. But this would seem to oppose the tenor of tradition generally in the subject. Waqidi adds that Abraha sent to Abyssinia for the famous elephant Mahmud expressly to join his expedition. This is from William Muir, who became a Muslim, okay? Muslim sheikh. He's a convert, okay? And he wrote a biography called The Life of Muhammad. That's in volume 1. So a Muslim said that. So the lead elephant, a white elephant known as Mahmud, okay, which is Mahmud, is said to have stopped at the boundary around Mecca and refused to enter. Archaeological discoveries in South Arabia suggest that the year of the elephant may have been the year 569 or 568, as the Sasanian Empire overthrew the Aksumite-affiliated rulers in Yemen, okay, around 570. According to Muhammad Asad, scholar, this surah does not describe birds literally. This is the stoning, okay? So according to this scholar, this verse of these birds dropping stones that killed the elephants, okay?
They had the names of the soldiers that the stones were going to land on and kill. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, whatever. It's just, okay? So he says that this surah does not describe small rocks or birds literally carrying small rocks. He references an Islamic scholar called Al-Zamakhshari and Fakhr al-Din al-Razi, both Islamic scholars. And he states the words used by namely the stones of Sijil denote a writing, not stones carried by birds, but a writing, something that has been decreed by Allah. So an order, right? And he further explains that this decree by Allah was a very sudden epidemic. So it's not that stones fell on them, they got sick, right? Which according to Ibn Ishaq caused fever, hasba, and smallpox, judari. So the stones were the smallpox sores on their bodies. This, Asad concludes, point to the fact that the stone-hard blows of chastisement preordained were a very sudden, virulent epidemic, COVID, due to the fact that the word for fever, hasba, primarily means pelting or smiting with stones. In the famous Arabic dictionary, Al-Qamus al-Muhit, which is the second most famous Islamic dictionary, by Fairuzabadi. And the word ta'ir can denote any flying creature, whether bird or insect. So in other words, it's not necessarily birds that drop stones, but maybe insects that bit them and gave them a disease. Yeah. So there's a very big contention about what exactly that means. Those ones, that can be read completely differently, and it makes perfect sense too. Thaddeus?
I'm just thinking they've probably dramatized that and tried to evoke some kind of miracle on there, that it was birds with stones, with names, in order to sensationalize the narrative, considering who the audience were at the time. So it was a deliberate play on words to make it appear that Allah, because when you look through the narrative of the Quran, you're constantly finding things being reinvented in order to fit the mold of Muhammad into the narrative. So this looks like a historical reinvention.
Correct.
To fit that.
Yeah. So, is it possible to have 13 elements on an expedition in that kind of desert? No, it is not. They need water. And again, according to the source that I showed earlier, there were no war elephants in that region for over 600 years. Right? So if you go have a look at the resource yourself, nothing. So in a Shia hadith, in Al-Kafi volume 1, Imam Ali was born in the 30th year of the elephant, and he died in after Hijrah 40. Some scholars have placed the year of the elephant 1 or 2 decades before. So Qurtubi, remember, Qurtubi said Mo was born this year, or the year of the elephant could have been 23 years before that date, or 40 years before that date. This scholar, okay, says 1 or 2 decades earlier than 570, so 560 or 550, with a tradition attributed to Ibn Shihab al-Sukhri in the works of Abd al-Razak al-Sanani, placing it before the birth of Muhammad's father. So in other words, now the year of the elephant now happened before the birth of Muhammad's father. They cannot decide. Yeah?
How do they get the birth of Muhammad's father? Because from my understanding, no one at that period of time would have had the presence of mind to record anything of Muhammad's genealogy. The genealogy we have now is a fabrication that they've had to make up. So at that time, when these scholars and sheikhs are writing these things, what are they predicating their writings on?
You know, that's a very good question for which I do not have any answers. So, yeah, but hey, we can just say what their sources say, right? What their sources are based on, who knows? So, yeah, let's continue with this. So, let's look at the haram, the word haram, al-Masjid al-Haram. So, the word haram among the Bedouin, okay, or the Bedouin, is a sacred area around a shrine. It's a place where holy power manifests. Now, I have a question. Haram, does it mean something good or something bad in Islam?
In Islam, it's haram. That means it's bad.
Yeah, so the haram is an area around a sacred shrine. It's a sacred area around a sacred shrine, but haram means something bad, something forbidden, right? So a place where a holy power manifests itself, right? And the sacred territory of Mecca is also known as the haram. Now, al-Haramain is the 2 holy places, usually Mecca and Medina. But oddly, occasionally it's referred to as Jerusalem and Hebron. Who lived in Hebron? Abraham. So this is why they refer to Jerusalem and Hebron, because, okay, the Al-Haramain is where Abraham comes from, and Islam is now following the religion of Abraham, and the early religion of Abraham, as I've discussed previously in earlier slides and earlier shows, is the Sabaean moon worship. And the Sabaean moon worship is based on Babylonian moon worship of the moon god Sin, known in Yemen as Makkah. So the moon god Sin, which is the Babylonian god, was known as Makkah.
Is there a correlation then? Lloyd.
Yeah.
Is there a correlation then in the ayah in the Quran where Abraham is spoken of seeing the sun and saying, "This is my God," then seeing the moon and "This is my God"?
Yeah.
And is that a correlation, or is that connected with the material?
I do discuss that in depth. I have discussed Abraham previously. We have this. It's just been so long since we've done it. So Ishtar is the star god. So righteous Ishtar is the star god. So don't forget, on the Islamic symbolism, you've got the moon and the star. The star is the child of the moon and the sun. Okay. So you've got the moon and you've got the sun. Now here's the thing. So you need to bear this in mind. In Western, or generally in most Western mythology, right, the moon tends to be female. Okay, and the sun is male. This is the general concept. And then the children, the star, are the children. Okay, these are the kids, right? These are the kiddies. So the sun and the moon are husband and wife, and they have kids who are stars. In Arabia, as in oddly enough, as in Mesopotamia, the moon is male, the sun is female.
Can I guess as to what one of the kids' names is?
So Ishtar is like the main star god, okay? So if we go here, let me bring up this reference. So I'll show you a leftover. So let me find this reference. We just have it run through. Okay, so this is the Encyclopaedia of Islam, okay? Now here you've got Attar, okay? Notice, excuse me, okay. This word Attar. Now, since you asked about that, Thunderous, as well, I will cover this just briefly. It is discussed in more detail, pardon me, another time. So Attar is the star god. But notice this very same word here in Islam, in the Encyclopedia of Islam, tells us it's a technical term for a relic of the Prophet. His hair, his teeth, his autograph, utensils. His autograph, he couldn't write. What the hell? Utensils alleged to belong to him. Yeah. And impressions of his footprint, but in the science of the tradition. Okay, but notice here, in Islamic astrology And Islam is pure monotheism, none of that stuff, except it does have all of that stuff. In Islamic astrology, Athar is used as a technical term in the theory of causality with reference to the influence of the stars. And in Islam, stars are considered as higher beings possessing a soul because they are the children of the sun and the moon. Does that make sense?
What I'm trying to reconcile that, and if they do because the sun prostrates itself to Allah when it's done the full circle. So there is a truth in that. What I'm trying to reconcile is then how comes Allah uses these stars as missiles to throw at jinn then?
Dude, don't confuse me with the facts, okay? It hurts my brain. You know, seriously, you're confusing me with the facts now. That's really painful to process. Actually, hold on. Let me actually have a quick look. So since it has come up, let me have a look at this. Let me see if let me find here. So it's here somewhere. Okay. Actually, so. Okay. You know what? Let me skip it. I'll come to it another time. I'll cover it more thoroughly another time. Let me rather just move on and stick to this topic. But does that answer your questions for now, so far, Thaddeus?
It does now, yes. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, there's more to be said, but I'll cover it later. So, Surah 4, verse 125, Abraham is described as Hanif. It is stated in addition that Allah took him as a friend. Okay? So, and hence the later designation of Hebron, the alleged burial place of Abraham, as Khalil. Now, upright. What I want to show you, I'm going to go to, let me go here. There's something that I need to show. I want to show these, okay? So these are stelae. These are upright columns. These are very early. Now, in Arabia, there's dozens of these kinds of sites. Dozens of these. Okay, these columns have fallen over. There's loads and loads of them. You can see they're all over the place. And also, Arabia has hundreds of massive archaeological sites. Ancient, Neolithic. We're talking like up to 9,000-year-old Neolithic sites between Arabia and Jordan. Okay, now these columns are very common in pagan cultures. Okay, but there's something else I need to find here as well. I need to find another set. Okay, now there's this slide I want to show you guys. This is a 9,000-year-old Neolithic shrine in Jordan. Okay, it's called the Sillam. Okay, a Sillam. Now, so these are the graven idols. So within the Bible, the Ten Commandments tell us, do not bow to graven idols. This is an upright column. This is a Hanif. Abraham was Hanifan. Allah is Hanifan. Allah is upright. These are upright columns. This is a graven idol. This is a graven idol. This is what God said not to worship. And this is what Muslims said Abraham worshipped as a Sabaean. Your thoughts on that, Thaddeus?
I'm just looking at this for the first time. Sorry.
So these are graven idols and pillar statues. Remember, God says do not worship pillars.
Of course not. He wouldn't have done. Abraham had a relationship, not a religion with God.
Yeah, but he first did when he was not, before Yahwism, before the worship of Yahweh, Abraham worshipped these things.
Okay.
Right. Now, I want to show, I'm going to go to something else. Let me do this, just so that I can clarify, since we're asking so many questions, and then I need to find one more. Okay. Now, Muslims are always happy to tell you, I'm just going to do this. Muslims are happy to tell you that Islam means peace. I believe that is a common statement, right? They'll say, now the root, all these Arabic words have a root. Sillam. They always say Islam means peace. That's the first thing they'll tell you. Islam equals peace. All right? So now, let's go have a look. So the word Allah, within Strong's dictionary, okay, Allah means curse. Right? This is from the Biblical Dictionary Strong's. Okay? Now let's continue. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image. Right? We are often told that Arabic, Sillam, means equals salam equals Islam, which is not untrue. It's the root of salam, which means peace, technically, and Islam, which means to surrender, submit. It's a common Semitic word, and you'll find it in Strong's H67545. And in Strong's, it means image, means heathen gods. Isn't that odd? The word Silim means heathen gods, and rock idol. Yes, go on.
No, I was just saying that's new to me. I've not seen that before.
And Silim, the earliest known use in that region, is in the name of Shalim, the ancient god of dusk, Venus, the evening star. So the earliest use of SLM as a word in religion is for Shalim, the star god. It's the offspring of El with Athirat, and here we see Attar again. Attar that we just had. Here we go again. Yes?
I was just saying, is it no coincidence then that Islam is an anagram of Silam then?
Correct. No, it's this expansion. It's just, this is the root, and it's got multiple words. So Shalim, the name of the god Shalim, you see, the earliest use, they always tell you this, but they forget to tell you that, hold on, it used to mean the name of the main star god. And in Akkadian, Shalamu, inscribed or graven image or statue. So within the Hebrew, it's graven image or statue. It's what God said, do not worship. In Aramaic and Syriac, Salama means image or idol. Again, back to graven idols. In Nabatean, in Palmyrene, and in Arab Hatra, in Mesopotamia. Now, people are not aware, but Hatra is an Arab fort, is an Arab location that was all the way up here. Hatra is all the way up here. Okay? So Hatra was all the way up here in Mesopotamia. So, no, Hatra is up here. Okay? So all the way up here somewhere. All the way up here in Mesopotamia, the Arabs had a fort, which was like Mecca, where they had all sorts of religions, and they were trading all the way into Turkey. And all these ideas flowed through Mesopotamia, into Turkey, to Haran of all places, and down into Arabia. Yes, Thunders?
No, so I lost my thought. Carry on.
Sorry about that. So in Aramaic and Syriac, okay, this Salama also means graven idol. So it's Nabatean, Palmyrene, and Arab. So think about it. Islam, the term Salim, was pagan through and through in every region, in every language in that region, right? Through every location in that region. And the Muslims forget to tell you that, and they claim it's pure monotheism, when every other application of it in history is pagan rock worship.
But you say that they forget to tell you. I would be more inclined to say that they've been taught what they believe. It's the higher up echelons. You know what we were discussing on Sunday, that the further up you go, the more you know the Yasakadi, the holes in the narrative. It's on that level. So the bottom people at the bottom of the totem pole, they're the ones that just repeat verbatim what they've been told by their scholars. But the information that you're coming out with now, this is all the higher up end of the Muslim hierarchy.
Yeah. So Righteous Asked, does it have anything to do with the name Jerusalem? So apparently the name Jerusalem, according to one source at least, okay, which, so in one source, there was the movie, the documentary that was narrated by Doctor Strange, and it represented Islam, which, I mean, look, considering the representation of Islam in that documentary was, on a scale from 1 to 10, it was crap. Complete crap. So yeah, I'm not inclined 100% to take whatever they say, but they did claim that the word Jerusalem comes from the Jeru of Shalem. Shalem being the god at the time. Now certainly there were pagan gods in the time, so that may well be true. However, Jerusalem has lost that connotation. Within Islam though, they still lick a rock, they still pray to a rock, they still hug a rock, scrape themselves over a rock, walk around a rock, and pray to a rock several times a day. So that's a complete, the context has not changed within Islam, whereas in Judaism, it's completely shifted. The name historically has stuck, but the context is completely different.
They have a fascination with stones, don't they? They walk around a rock, as you said, kiss a rock and bow down to a rock, and they wipe their anuses with stones. There's a clear link there with both orifices. There's a rock connection there somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, if we go back here,
can I just ask one more question? Now, when Adam was evicted from heaven and was sent to earth, the language he would have spoke would have been pure Arabic. So how, in all of this etymology and the changing of words and going from one language to another, how do the Muslims reconcile that the first language on earth would have been Arabic, but where did it go and where is it coming back from?
Just say that to me again, please. Right?
When Adam was evicted from heaven in Islamic parlance and he came on earth with Eve, the language he would have spoken would have been Arabic, pure Arabic. We know that because that's the language that Allah was speaking to Muhammad as Adam in heaven when the angels were greeting. They were greeting Adam, and Adam was giving the wa alaikum salam, rahmatullah. That's pure Arabic. So when Allah evicts Adam from heaven, Adam would have come down with the vocabulary that's pure Arabic. So the first language on planet Earth is pure Arabic.
Yeah, correct. Everyone knows that.
Yeah, but where did the language go, and where did it come back from?
Until the 5th century. Where did it go? Yeah.
Yeah, so there seems to be I'm looking at the etymology and everything, and that doesn't seem to be making any much in the way of sense.
Allah knows best. Yeah, there's feedback coming through. I can hear myself. Thunderous, I can hear myself. You have an echo.
Sorry.
Okay, so yeah, someone just mentioned this. Okay, Thunderous. Okay. No, I can hear myself coming through from your speakers.
Not from mine, because I haven't turned my speakers on, I don't think.
No, there's heavy feedback coming through. Okay, I'll speak softer. I'm going to turn down the gain on my mic. Is the echo still coming through? I'm talking much softer, but it's not. Okay, so someone mentioned Baphomet. Okay, so this is Baphomet. Okay, this is a fairly recent. So the Baphomet prior to this common image we have today was generally known as a head. Okay, however, this is a 17th century. So this is so hold on. Modern scholars agree that the name Baphomet was an old French corruption of the name Muhammad, with the interpretation being that some Templars, through their long occupation of the Outremer, right, this is the Middle East, had begun incorporating Islamic ideas, specifically Sufi ideas, into their belief system, and that this was seen and documented by the Inquisitors as heresy. So there is plenty of evidence to accuse the Templars of effectively converting to Islam. There is plenty. In the Chanson de Simampur, written before 1235, a Saracen, an Islamic idol, is called a Baphomet. A chronicle of the First Crusade, okay, so one of the chroniclers, Raymond of Aguirre, he called mosques Bafumarias. Okay, and then this guy mentions that in the trial of the Templars, one of the main charges was their supposed worship of a heathen idol head known as the Baphomet. Baphomet being Muhammad. Baphomet, okay, this is the Oxford English Dictionary, you guys may have heard of it. A form of the name Muhammad used by medieval writers. Alleged name of the idol which the Templars were accused of worshipping. The Templars worshipped Muhammad. Okay, it was Kabbalistically formed by writing backwards Tem of blah 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 blah, which whatever. Okay, father of the temple of peace of all men, the religion of peace, right? And it's a secret word ascribed to the Templars. So there's plenty. Most of the time people want to present the Templars as the heroes, as the good guys, and certainly half the historians do. You know me, I tend to look at the other half that people ignore, and yeah, there's a lot of bad news about the Templars that you would not like. So, okay, so understand there's plenty going on, but Baphomet was originally, and in fact, there's more evidence. I can go through it. I have shows on it on my channel. So Baphomet, in fact, the early Saracen war cry, okay, their war cry was to Baphomet, okay? They were doing it for Baphomet, which is Muhammad. So yeah, we'll leave it at that. Now notice, even in the Hebrew Chaldee lexicon, okay, this term salim was used of anything vain. So in the Bible, salim has a negative connotation as well. It's an image, a likeness, an idol. Okay, even in the Arabic, it says it's an image, and in this case, they simply mean a rock image, a rock god, a graven idol. So in Akkadian, you have inscribed image, large or small statue. The Hebrew, Selim means image or likeness, right? But in the Syriac, Salma means image or idol. It's in Old and Official, Aramaic, Nabatean, Palmyrene, Hatran, image of a god, okay? Selim, statue, image, and Dimit, this goes back to Ethiopia, likeness. Dimit was actually a region which worshipped pagan gods. Remember I mentioned Yemen and Ethiopia have very strong historical links, very strong.
Yeah.
So Dimit is actually a region in North Africa, just above Ethiopia. And in Nabatean inscriptions, the word for statue is Silim, so they are worshipping rock gods. Any thoughts from you, Thunderous, before we wind down? We'll call it a night soon.
You're putting all the pieces together, and there seems to be a tapestry that's interlinking many of the cultures that are surrounding the area that we're actually discussing at the moment. And all of them seem to be using similar words for similar usage, for identifying similar things.
Yeah, you know what? Let me see. Someone asked me if I can just talk briefly about Baphomet. So let me see if I can bring that up just briefly. Yeah, guys, man, we can be a whole day because seriously, this goes on for hours. So, okay. So, briefly, so guys, I'm going to call it a night soon. Otherwise, we'll be here for the whole day, but a whole night, depending when in the world you are. It's still loading, so give it a second. This is it's coming from the cloud. Wasn't enable content. Okay, there we go. So let's have a look here. Since someone asked so nicely about the Baphomet, that silver LTC. Freemasons are the reason I made Christ my king. They hated that I laughed at their cult and I got spiritual. Okay, nice. So, yeah. Okay. So modern scholars agree the name Baphomet was an old French corruption of the name Mohammed. Okay. The Templars, had begun incorporating Islamic ideas, so Sufi Gnostic ideas. Okay. And this was legitimately documented by the inquisitors. They did, or some of them at least did. The leadership certainly did. Right. Then, I've mentioned this reference, this one, and this one. Now let me continue. St. John of Damascus, the critique of Islam, they're also called Saracens, which is derived from Saras Kenoi, or the destitute of Sarah, because of what Hagar said to the angel, Sarah hath sent me away destitute. They used to be idolaters, and they were also in Arabia, right? They worshipped north of Mecca. They worshipped the morning star and Aphrodite, Alilat. So the Saracens worshipped the morning star and Aphrodite, Alilat, whom in their own language they call Khaybar. Okay, my friends, when I was in Arabia, I've been to Khubr. They called it Khubr. Okay, which means great, Kabirun, great in size or dignity, apparently. Sozomen says that they were descended from Hagar, but they called themselves descendants of Sarah to hide their servile origin. Okay, but to understand the truth, we have to know Baphomet, in the last 200 years, was associated with Satan. Okay, that's more of a 20th century innovation. So to understand the truth, we have to unravel the surprising history of Baphomet. Despite popular misconceptions, Baphomet technically had no association with Satan until well into the 20th century. Before that, it was associated with Muhammad. The word first turned up in a letter of 1098 by Anselm of Ribabont, who fought in the First Crusade. Describing the lead-up to a clash with Muslim soldiers, he wrote out, as the next day dawned, they called loudly upon Baphomet. And we prayed silently. So the Muslims called upon Muhammad. Okay? So they were basically worshipping and calling to Muhammad. And we prayed silently in our hearts to God. The context of the word here, along with other evidence from the First Crusade, suggests that Baphomet was a version of Muhammad. As the next day dawned, they called loudly upon Baphomet while we prayed silently in our hearts to God. Then we attacked and forced all of them outside the city walls. So this is a very strong reference to them being, to Muhammad being Baphomet. And there's a lot going on here at that. Now notice within the Bible it says they must no longer offer any of their sacrifices to the goat idols to whom they prostitute themselves. This is a goat idol. And the Baphomet was a goat's head according to some evidence against the Templars. And so they were violating these laws. I can go through this another time. And also, you might find this interesting. Thunderous, anything from you before I go on? I'll just show one or two things and we'll call it a night.
This is all new to me. The only question I have to ask is when the Templars were grafting in some features of the Baphomet worship, what features would those have been? Is there any inclination or any information on that?
They talk about a head, but the head could refer to knowledge, like the gnosis. It could be... So look, it's very unclear. I must admit, it's very unclear, but I haven't read through it in depth, but everyone tries to present the Templars as heroes. But the thing is, the Templars became the modern Rothschilds, the bankers of the day, right? I mean, all those things people like to hate, the World Economic Forum, that's who they were back then. They were supplying money and they were using that influence and they were corrupting Europe, and they needed to be stopped. For about a century prior, a lot of the history says that they were hated, okay? So they started off as the good guys, they did the right thing, and then they changed. They got very wealthy and they became corrupt. And they were hated for about a century before they were stopped and disbanded. So notice the holy book of the KKK is called the Koran. For those who are not familiar with this, the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, their holy book is the Koran. You may have heard of a book called the Koran, okay? It's derived from Islam's Quran, and they have a caliph. So the Knights of the KKK have a caliph that runs the KKK, and they worship. And the earliest symbol of the KKK was not a cross. Of course, now they desecrate the cross by burning it, right? However, the first symbol of the KKK, believe it or not, was the Islamic crescent and star, for those who don't know. This was the earliest symbol. This is the only known photo. These are a couple of the only known photos of the earliest uniform of the KKK with the Islamic star and crescent. Your thoughts, Thunderous?
The only thing that I'm thinking of there straight away is that when you consider the Tower of Babel and moving forward in the stream of time up until the 1st century, you see that Satan, the demons, have grafted on what you could argue, or is argued rather, in the two Babylons by, I think it's John or Alexander Hislop. I've got the book, I forget what the author's name is, and it's basically that Nimrod worship has been continuing for 2,000 years, but what you're presenting here now, there seems to be a transition from Nimrod worship to Muhammad worship, and that has been grafted on through history to where we are today.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, thank you. So okay. So Thunderous, so guys, I will end here tonight and call it a day. And Thunderous, can you tell the guys what you want to talk about Khadija? Just inform everyone, because I think within next week sometime we want to be talking about Khadija. So that'll be your show.
Yes, and what Lloyd and myself would like to do is actually discuss Khadija and how without Khadija there wouldn't be Islam. In fact, Khadija is the catalyst for Islam, and that Muhammad's experiences, as we will bring out, using only the Islamic sources, his experiences were unknown to him, but his wife seemed to know more about what was going on than he did, and it was her actions and reactions that led to 1,400 years of misery for women. And there's a certain irony that the biggest tyranny that women have had to face since Eve's fall from the Garden of Eden is the Islamic tyranny on women for 1,400 years, and the irony being that it was the catalyst in all of this was a woman. So we'll be looking into that in the next few weeks.
Fantastic. Yeah. No, thank you. Nemesis says there's an early film about the KKK in the South, a silent movie with this crescent to see. Now that's interesting. That'll be very interesting too, which confirms again what I've been saying. And I'll end here, guys. So lots of names of pagan gods are words within Islam today. Within the Quran as well, even chapters of the Quran are named after pagan gods like Hilal and Qamar. Hilal is the crescent moon. This was the name of the crescent moon god in Islam, in Arabia, in the pagan Arabia. And Qamar, okay, these are all moon gods. Now the classical name, okay, I'll skip all this nonsense and I'll just go here. Okay, I'm going to skip this and I'll end here, and we'll convene on this next time. This is the Hilal, okay? The Hilal is the crescent, Islam's symbol. But notice here, okay? These are, if you go through the flags of the Arabian countries as well as the Islamic countries, you're going to see crescent and star, crescent and star, crescent and star all over the place. This is Morocco's flag, the pentagram. I mean, if this isn't in your face, okay? This is the flag of Morocco, the actual pentagram. Last word, Thunderous, and then we call it a night.
No, thank you. But this material, some of it was actually, much of it was actually new to me. So hence my contribution may not have been on the form it normally is. But I was learning along with the audience, I think, on this one tonight, Lloyd.
Yeah, and Sola Scriptura says symbol of the Luciferians, the witches. Yeah, well, you tell them that, right? Because someone needs to. Yeah, crescent and star, crescent and star. And I started off by showing this symbol. This symbol here, this is actually a pagan symbol. It goes back BC. It goes back to the first millennium of the Sabaeans. The Sabaeans had this very same symbol. Actually, let me just go back here. If we go back to the Sabaeans, we just go back to the very first symbol here. If I go here, that very same symbol is this one here. Understand? It's this one here. It's this one here. It's this one here. Yeah. This is the symbol of the Sabaeans, and this is actually on Islamic flags. So,
as a last thought, so I'd just like to ask this, or mention this, is it was kind of like enlightening to me that it's hidden in plain sight, and that's next to the Kaaba. You identified that crescent-shaped structure right next to the Kaaba itself, and you wouldn't notice it until you brought it out.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty good at that, aren't I? Let me show you that. Yeah, the Kaaba. Actually, yeah, let me just do this. Okay, so here we are. Yes, just so you guys are probably not familiar, but we're going to be speaking a lot about moon, stars, and sun. Okay, and pillars. There used to be 6 pillars inside the Kaaba. There used to be 6 pillars. Now there are 3. 1, 2, 3. 3 pillars. Okay, 6 pillars, 5 prayers. Right. This is the Kaaba. This is supposed to be the Milky Way. This is supposed to be the sky at night. That's the Milky Way. But also in Islam, the masculine is dressed in white, females in black. Here, the Kaaba is in a niqab that's black. And then notice the symbol here, the moon. And this is from directly above. You've got the moon and you've got stars. See? If you look at it from another angle, you've got the stars rotating around the sun, the house of Allah. See? Which is the dog star Sirius. Okay? And here you've got the sun. This is the disk of the sun. This is the dog star Sirius. And this is the moon right there. So I'll leave you guys to think about this. We'll cover this. We'll go into this in much more depth. We'll talk about the historical links, the archaeological links, the language as well. So yeah, this is all pagan worship that goes way back to Babylon. Okay, guys. Yeah, thank you. So Thunderous, thank you all. And guys, I hope it's been interesting and entertaining. Thanks again for the support and the interesting questions and comments. And guys, we will see you on Sunday. Take care.
Thank you very much indeed, everybody. Bye-bye.